Here we are again, guys, right back in the thick of it. I cannot stay away. As mentioned, back in my favorite location when it comes to poker, here at the Wynn Poker Room in Las Vegas, Nevada. And when I say Wynn Poker Room, technically I mean the Encore Poker Room. But this used to be on the Wynn side of the property, and the name just kind of stuck. It's still called the Wynn on the Bravo system, by the way, so I must not be the only one. I'm back in the 2-5, experiencing some swings here in early trading already. Let's jump right in here, shall we? In this first hand, the straddle is on, the hijack open limps, and I look down at a suited connector. I go ahead and bump it up to $45, and everyone on my left calls, and the hijack limper folds. So not exactly the results that I expected there pre-flop, but we'll see what happens here. So we are going 5 ways to a flop, 10-6-5 rainbow with 1 spade. It checks over to me, and it could definitely check here since we're so massively multi-way, but we have a gutter ball to the nuts, and we have some backdoor opportunities as well. So I'm just gonna go ahead and put in a small bet here and see what happens, play some different runouts, some different ways. I bet $85, small bet on a relatively dry flop. Only the button calls. So we are going heads up to a turn card, which picks us up the backdoor flush draw. So we can't stop betting now. I look at her stack and she's got maybe between $700 and $800 in her stack. So with the pot almost $400, in hindsight, I really like a jam. Just the 2x pot size bet. It's going to be tough for her to continue with all of her 1 pair hands or even pair plus draw hands. Obviously we're going to get snapped off by sets, but even in that case, we still have decent equity. So I really like just jamming here, but I decide on a more standard bet size of $200. Not really in love with that bet size. My opponent does call, and we are off to see a river card on which we make a pair. Not exactly the river card of dreams. We improve our hand, but only marginally, I would assume. And since we block spades, I don't think it's the best spot to go ahead and jam the river here. We don't have as much fold equity as the stacks are a little bit more shallow now here on the river. So I'm just gonna check and give up. My opponent checks back pretty quickly. I announce the 9, I show the 9, and she says, "Oh no, you hit a 9." She shows us pocket 8s. So we do find an out. An unassumed, unlikely out was the offsuit 9. So again, I think I still like a jam there on the turn. I think she probably has to fold her hand unless she wants to get hero-y. Maybe she still finds a call, but we win anyway. So again, jam would have been the best move there. In this next hand, we're playing 7-handed, and this time the button straddle is on. I look down at ace-king offsuit from under the gun. They get $35 to go. Button calls, and the big blind puts in a 3-bet to $125. When I first sat down at this table, he was very much into the idea of everybody straddling, and he's from Europe, and he seems like he's not there to knit it up. Just the vibe, just the feeling that I'm getting here in this spot. So I'm gonna put in the 4-bet with this ace-king. I don't think he necessarily needs to be super strong just based on my read. I may get $375 to go. The button folds, and the big blind thinks for a bit and then calls. So we're off heads up to see a 4-bet pot here. Flop comes king high with 2 spades. I take a look back at my hand and I do not have any spades in my hand. So after he checks it over to me, I think I want to bet here pretty much with my full range, and I decide on a wager of $250. My opponent thinks for a little bit and makes the call. So things are happening, a pretty decent sized pot brewing here. The turn is an offsuit ace. We make top 2 pair and he checks it over to me. I think checking back here is certainly reasonable. We have a lot of his calling range probably blocked. With top 2 pair, there's not a whole lot of combinations left that he can continue on. But again, considering that I don't have any spades and neither the ace nor the king on the board is a spade, that should allow for some combinations of flush draws, which usually don't play a big part in 4-bet pots, but this one, there could be some potential here, and I think giving a free card in this spot would be not exactly ideal. Think about all the spade combos that he could have here: king queen suited, king jack suited, king 10 suited, even a hand like queen jack suited, queen 10 suited, all the ace high flush draws that are going to be able to continue versus a bet, and we definitely don't want to give a free card to. I load up another bet, this time to the tune of $375. My opponent, after thinking about it for a little bit, goes ahead and folds. So not unhappy with that result at all. 4-bet pot, and we get value on the flop, and we take it down with no showdown. We move on to another interesting hand here in the early hours of this session. There is a recreational player who makes it $15 from early position. I look down at Jack 10 offsuit middle position and make the call. He's got about $1,000, so even though this call is a little bit on the loose side, I think it's probably going to do okay in the long run. Maybe. I could definitely get behind a fold here very easily. There is some reasoning there that makes sense for a call, but with being in middle position and facing an early position raise, you know, it's just not that special of a hand. But we didn't come all the way to the strip, all the way from downtown to fold Jack 10, did we? So I make the call, button calls, and the big blind calls. 4 ways to a flop of 9-7-5 with 2 diamonds. Big blind checks, the initial raiser puts out a bet of $30. I debate a little bit between raising and flat calling. I eventually decide on a flat call. He is betting into 3 people, so I'm not too sure how much he's going to be giving up. And it seems like he might be a little bit stronger than average. So I decided to flat call and the other players fold. Turns the king of diamonds and he checks it over to me. We block some flushes with a diamond in our hand. We have no showdown value. Tough to know how much equity we have as well to rely on. So I think I want to go ahead and start bluffing here like I would with pretty much all my flushes. I would start betting with those. So I'm gonna go ahead and put out a bet here. This time I bet $115, I believe. My opponent thinks for a little while and then he makes the call. Looking for a little help here on the river, which does not show up. It does put 4 to a straight on the board though. After he checks it over to me, we end up with basically one of the worst hands that we could possibly have in this spot. Don't want to just show down Jack high, of course. We have a diamond blocking flushes. We have somewhat of a range advantage, I would imagine. A field caller versus an under the gun or early position raise should be connected with this board pretty decent percentage of the time. So I'm gonna go ahead and try and get the job done with a $345 wager. My opponent goes into the tank, checks his cards again. Seems like he's not in love with his hand, but in the end, he tosses in the call. So we proudly turn over that Jack 10 offsuit, and he even more proudly turns over 2 black aces. This man did not come all the way to Las Vegas, Nevada to fold 2 black aces. Clearly, even on a board with a 4 to a straight and 3 to a flush and etc. So I don't know. I think my line is fine. Pre-flop is definitely suspect, but beyond that, I think it's definitely fine. What can you do? Sometimes bluffs don't work. Doesn't mean that it wasn't a bad attempt. I'm happy with it, I guess, but yeah, could of course fold pre-flop. All right, one more hand of note here. Again, still in early trading here. Well, I don't know. We've been playing for like 3 hours now, so maybe not such early trading. In this hand, the hijack open limps into the pot. We look down at 8-7 of clubs in the small blind. Standard play would be to just complete there in the small blind, but I think it's good to have some such cards that will provide for some board coverage on different boards. If we're only raising high card hands out of the small blind and we never hit flops such as 9-6-5, then people might be able to take advantage of us a little bit. So I decided to make it $30 to go. The big blind very quickly calls and the hijack calls as well. So 3 ways to a flop of ace, ace, king with 2 clubs. This board should favor me heavily, usually. Again, people should sort of suspect that I would have high cards in this small blind raising situation. So I bet out for $30. The big blind calls quickly and the hijack fold. Heads up to a turn card, which is a total brick. Once again, I consider giving up right away, but again, I don't want to do that, really. I think he's going to have a lot of hands where he will have a king, king, queen, king, jack suited, king, 10 suited. I think those types of hands are going to be in a tough spot facing a bet. I put out said bet for, again, I believe $110 or $115. My opponent thinks for not that long and makes the call. So we are definitely going to be giving up here because it seems like he's probably got an ace here in the hole. That is until the jack of clubs rolls off on the river. So now we make a flush. We do have to worry about the occasional full house. I think it's going to be a bet fold situation here. Wouldn't expect him to go too crazy with just a dry ace, but I think we can maybe squeeze some value out of that sort of a hand. So I'm going to put in a bet here. I bet $225. My opponent verbalizes, "Did you make your flush?" I do not respond, do not reply, and I just sit there silently waiting for him to make the call, which he does. So we go ahead and show him. We say we do make the flush, and he does not show us, but he shows some other people at the table and says he has an ace, and certainly believe him. Maybe a hand like ace queen, ace 10, mow that down, take down the pot. So we were up a healthy amount, then we were only up like $100, and now we're up like $500. Okay, so gonna get back in there. Action is not that much aplenty at the moment, I would say. It is Labor Day weekend, so you would imagine people partying, but it's kind of quiet in here right now. We'll see what happens. Maybe I'll switch tables or properties, or maybe I'll just grind it out. One other thing I want to touch on, though, that was on my list from the last blog, I did touch on the money bands, the favorable money bands. Speaking of favorable apparel, really want to say thank you to everybody who came out to the pop-up shop during the World Series of Poker. Somehow, the pop-up shop footage never made it into the vlog until now.
Until I said so.
pop-up shop was super dope. It was, you know, the first thing that Busi and I had done that was unrelated to a poker table, you know, any actual poker play. We had an amazing turnout. Somewhere between 80 and 100 people came out to Atomic Liquors, hung out, had some drinks, and maybe picked up an item or two. But just really cool. We would love to do this sort of thing again, whether that's here in Vegas or Los Angeles or New York or who knows where. But cheers, guys. Thanks for everyone who came to that pop-up shop. All right, going back to play some more poker. Alright guys, it is a little bit later than expected. I'll explain why that is in a minute, why it's so late. But first off, let me explain where we are. This is Ellis Island Casino and Brewery. If you guys are looking for a nice spot to grab some beers that are brewed at a casino, this is going to be the spot for you, Ellis Island. This is on Koval, which is half a mile off of the strip. Look at this beer. And guess how much this beer cost? Lock in your answers. $2.50. That's how much it costs. And that's without gambling. They actually have like a proper casino here, the table games, and of course, as you can see, all the slot machines and everything else. Really cool spot. If you're into karaoke, which I'm absolutely not, you can come here. They got karaoke too. All right, so we got a couple more hands to report. I went back and played at the Wynn, the 2-5 game, for maybe another hour and a half or so. In this first hand, the under the gun player limps and the next player to act makes it $20 to go. The button calls. I look down at Jack 10 offsuit in the big blind. I make the call, and the limper calls as well. Flop's a good one for our hand. It's Ace, Jack, Jack. I go ahead and check it, but the action checks all the way around. Turn is a pretty favorable one for us. It's another Jack. So, guys, I don't know if you remember in the previous vlog, but we flopped quads in that hand. Turns out we are making quads in back-to-back hands, which by this point shouldn't really be all that surprising. I don't know how many times we've made quads in this vlog, but it's probably more than any other poker vlogger that you've ever come across in your life. So anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and check it again here. The player on my left checks, and this time the initial raiser puts out a very small bet of $10, folds over to me, and I'm not going to be super balanced here. I'm not going to have any real bluffs, I don't think, but I don't see any other way to start building a pot other than check raising in this spot. So I raise it up to $50. The player on my left folds, and the initial raiser makes the call. The river's a 9, pretty straightforward. Just going to bet and hope we can get some value from an ace here. I bet $150, and my opponent thinks for a little bit before tossing in a call. After I show it down, my opponent shows pocket 9s. So I guess he's non-believing. I guess it is possible that we could have some bluffs in this spot, at least some perceived bluffs. No complaints on my end. We are scooping in another pot with quads. Shortly after that, speaking of all those jacks, we look down at pocket jacks from under the gun or under the gun +1. I make it $20, and there's a call in middle position and from the big blind. The flop comes King Jack for rainbow, and the big blind leads right out for $25. There's no flush draw on board, and I don't want to scare anyone off, so I just flat call, and the player on my left folds. Heads up to a turn card, which is the deuce of hearts, bringing in a backdoor flush draw. My opponent continues betting, this time for $50. He's not super deep stacked, so I'm not too worried about trying to get all the money in at any one point. He's got maybe a couple $100, I want to say, behind his bet here. So I'm just going to flat call again, play some river cards, and that river card makes us a full house. It's another deuce, and this time he bets $125. I go ahead and raise, set him in, and he snap calls. I don't know about you guys, but these jacks, I've heard that jacks are difficult to play. I'm not really seeing it. It seems pretty straightforward to me. We're gonna drag a pot here with a full house, jacks full of 2s. Follow up those quads, those 4 jacks just before that, and another pot that is going to wrap up our 2-5 session. We get into the game for $1,500, and we cash out of the 2-5 game for $2,862. Nice little profit of $1,362. You might be wondering why my eyes are a little bit red here. As mentioned, it's a little bit later than expected. It's 4 in the morning. So if I was only at that 2-5 game for another hour and a half, how could it be so late? Well, I'm glad you asked. I saw some friendly faces on the other side of the Wynn poker room. ran into a guy that I've gotten to know over the past couple of years. All right, guys, I was just about to wrap up the session over here at the Wynn.
Oh, no way!
I saw a very, very friendly face. You guys, some of you guys are probably gonna be familiar with Alan, Mr. Hotted. I don't know, what do you think you're more known as, Alan or Hotted?
Nah, everybody knows me as Hotted. Even in the poker world, they call me Hotted.
Okay, so you guys might remember him from a vlog that was on my channel a while ago.
For people that don't know me, I'm a gamer. I've always been a gamer. I play professionally, and now for the past 3 years, I've been playing, getting involved in a lot of poker. I was with Moneyband, now I'm with Party Poker, and there was a huge gaming event in Vegas that was actually done at the Poker Go studio in the area, and we decided, since it was one of the last few nights with everybody here, to kind of just hang out. And Sophia, djarii, you will see her later. Yeah, there she is. She actually was like, you know what? Let's play poker instead of gambling. I'm like, sure, if you guys want to play poker, let's play poker.
She's smart. She's the brains of the operation.
Yeah, she's the brains of the operation. We're here.
Here we are. Here we are at the Wynn. It's always good to see you. We don't get enough time together, so
I know.
This is a cool moment.
Yeah, I told them that we're staying in Vegas for a few more weeks, so we'll definitely get more hangout time for sure.
We'll get you on the vlog a couple times here, hopefully.
Yeah, for sure.
Really cool to see these guys again. They were nice enough to let a professional poker player hang out with them and have a couple drinks with them. So I sat in there, won 3 games, bought in for the minimum $100. Eventually a couple of their friends left, and a couple of random casino patrons took their seats in the game. They bought in for more money. That meant I added on for more money. Got into the game for $500 total and cashed out of the game for $1,100 and something or other. Pretty fun night over there at the Wynn. Gonna wrap it up here. I'm going to enjoy this brew, maybe donate a little bit into the slot machine called Towers of the Temple. Or maybe not. Maybe I'll just have a couple sips of this beer and then go home and get some sleep. One last thing, some of you guys will be watching this on Tuesday. That'll be the upload date of this video. There's a meetup game at the South Point today, if you're watching this on Tuesday. We'll probably start at 3 p.m. We'll probably go until 10 p.m. We're gonna have a special guest at the end of the evening. Hope you guys can make it if you're in Las Vegas. Happy to be back on the grind here, playing some poker. I know you guys like to see some vids that are not meetup games, so happy to provide that.
This one going on YouTube.